It
Okay.
was, they told me, because we literally, Ron's daughter and I took her to the car, and then she started throwing up. But they said that's a reaction, right, because of the vaccine. And it was just so scary. So like, we're taking her to the back. Can we give her Benadryl? I'm like, yeah. And we know she's 14. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And then they make you wait a few minutes because the doctor has to see her, but she was okay. They just ended up giving her Benadryl and a steroid. So
Oh boy, she's been through a lot today.
yeah, so that's why she was out the door and Rob was leaving. So I'm like, okay, I go get you. I go get you.
So that's Pebbles. The show was great, Jennifer. You did
Oh,
an
thank you
amazing
so
job.
much. It really was very nice. And it was nice to hear the comments from the people. And thank you again for having me. It's just really like you said, what you're doing is making such a difference because I think people have a lot of misconceptions too about transplant.
Yeah,
So
they really
you're
don't know
you're
what to go through.
sharing them and showing everyday people, right? We're just it could be your friend, your neighbor, like we just look like everyday people, so it could happen to anybody.
Yeah, you never know what someone is going through in their life. That's why you should always be kind and considerate because you never know. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't wear I'm a heart transplant recipient and I almost died on our forehead. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And you don't get a transplant unless it's a life or death situation. You just don't. I mean, so we all have gone through some very difficult seasons in our lives. And even like you say, transplant is not a cure, but we're still here.
We are.
And each day has its own set of challenges, and you've been through a lot, and you're still here, and you're still determined to survive and thrive. And I'm definitely going to keep you in my prayers and encourage everyone else to do that because that's what brings us through.
It's so true. And my mom, she's in a lot of different prayer groups, and we started going. Ron has started coming too to some of the masses now, and it's kind of something that we're doing together, which is also very nice. And
Yeah.
just praying. I believe in that. As I said, since I was young, my mom, I was brought up, in a Catholic family, and I had my sacraments and just going. And I also try to explain to people, even like I have friends of mine that are like, oh, I can't go for this reason, that. I said, even if you're not Catholic or whatever the case is, you go to I always feel like going to a church, there's just a sense of peace there, even if you don't fully know what's going on.
Yeah. All God requires is that you believe in his son, Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross
Yes.
for our salvation, that he rose from the dead, and that he is seated in heavenly places. And he's interceding for us right now. You know, God only requires for us to believe. Denominations are not in the Bible.
Really?
Like, no, Baptist is not in the Bible, Catholic is not in the Bible, even Christian is not in the Bible. It's not about religion, it's about relationship with the God who loves us. He said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life." Period. That don't say nothing about what church you go to, what religion you go to, what you wear on your head, and you know what I mean? All of that stuff that man puts on us. God is not religious. People are. That's the
I
truth.
love that you said that. My mom says that a lot. She'll say,
Yeah.
it's, if to be a good person is to be a good person,
But you got to believe in Jesus Christ, or that's the rule. Jesus said, "No man comes to the Father except through me." Period. And then people want to put all these other prerequisites and all this. They want to bring the color of your skin into the equation. People are always talking about skin, but when you die, your skin don't go with you.
Exactly.
I'm like, what difference does it make what color Jesus was? His
That's how
blood
I feel.
was saved us. And we all have the same color blood. It's like your blood is not no different red than mine. When I was in the hospital believing for a heart transplant, I didn't say, Lord, make sure I have a black, you know,
E-
donor, you know, that, I did care about whether they were a Christian or not, a believer.
That I
I did
understand.
care about that. I didn't want to Satan worshiper. I'm sorry, y'all. I just did not. I did not want to say worship her heart, but you know what I mean. But
That's
the
understandable.
color of their skin did not matter. They could have been pink, blue, purple dot. It didn't matter. I think my donor was purple though.
I
I
can see
think my
that. I'm
donor
gonna,
had
you know what?
purple skin.
I'm gonna agree to that.
Because I wasn't like this before I had my transplant, Jim.
Really?
I wasn't a purple, fanatic before I had my transplant. This happened post transplant because my favorite color before was red.
Oh.
Seriously. And then after transplant, it was all about the purple, man. I was just drawn to it like a magnet. And then I found purple hair and that did
Yeah.
it.
I mean, do you ever get that question, like where people ask you and say, like, do you feel different, or do you feel that you have stuff? I don't really know because I was young, so honestly, my personality could have just changed. So I don't
Yeah.
know, but I know a lot of people do get accidents. Some people believe, like I have a good friend of mine, Joanna Lucci. She had a lung transplant, and her donor ended up really loving Kit Kats, and she like
The
never liked
candy.
Kit Kats, and now she's obsessed with Kit Kats.
Yeah, DNA is strong. You have somebody else's DNA in your body, and it carries a genetic trait. I believe that. And our immunosuppressant medication suppresses it. So it's going to be active. It's going to commingle in there some kind of way. I remember when I first woke up, I was still in the hospital. I wanted to go hiking. I ain't never talked about going hiking. I kept saying, when am I going to be able to go hiking? I want to go hiking. Everybody was like, really? Did you do hiking before? I was like, no. But all of a sudden, I really want to go hiking. And, my needs were like, I don't think we're going to go hiking, you know. But yeah, I believe that there's some kind of connection to that. And so that's why faith was important to me. It really was. But other than that, ethnicity doesn't matter. I love
Um,
everybody. I actually embrace our differences, you know, because like I look at you and I see someone so unique and so beautiful, and I'm like, you know, that's exciting to me. I like having friends of different ethnicities. I've
Me
always been like
too.
that though. Yeah.
I am
Because there's so
also.
much to learn from each other,
And
about our
because, like you
cultures and
said,
stuff.
you learn about cultures, you learn about the person, and that doesn't make you who you are. I believe it doesn't matter if you're like I said, if you're a good person, you're a good person to me. I don't care what you have, what you don't have in this
Right.
life,
Right.
anything like that. That doesn't impress me.
Right. It's
People that are genuinely just kind people and nice souls and stuff do.
Do you love Jesus? That's priority number one because that's all that matters to me at this point. That's for real.
I don't blame you because, like you said, people, it's sad. This world is really, it has its sad moments. And if you surround yourself with good, like, hearted people that believe that, it brings you up, it lifts you up. I was just telling my friend that I was talking to you beforehand. I said, you brighten my day. Like, you just have that personality that you make things happy. We'll have to Zoom anyway, just sometimes so I can see you and
Oh
we can talk.
yeah, oh yeah. Look, you got my number. You can call me anytime. We're friends now. I really believe in that. A lot of my guests are. I'm friends with my guests, and it's cool. I had some crazy guests that wanted to be like sister friends all like every day, and I'm like, girl, please, I can't talk to you every day. But you know
But
what
I
I
have
mean?
a wife.
Like,
We can talk on
yeah.
occasion.
I'm producing a show here. Is like busy all the time. Between the Facebook lives and the TV show, and then I do other things as well. So life gets busy, but that's what God gave us a second chance at life for, right? To make the
Yeah.
best of it, and that's what I'm gonna do is make the best of it, but mostly to glorify Him. I'm telling you, that's all that matters to me because whew, it's getting dark out there, Jim.
It's sad. Even that, I can't wait to watch the show on Saturday. So Saturday
Saturday,
it'll be 8:30 a.m. and
eight
p.m.
thirty a.m. and 8:30 p.m. You could watch it either
Because
time.
that's really interesting. And like you said, I think what happens, especially as transplant patients, we're so concerned, right, with trying to get our medication and insurance and just trying to live, like, just every day live and testing and stuff. But that back part of it is so important that people don't
There's
even
a
realize.
whole
This.
world behind the scenes, boo,
Oh, I
that
know.
they
I
don't talk
know.
about. The organ procurement organizations are basically invisible, and that's what tonight was talking about. But I mean, they have these major conferences, and they're involved in policy making, and they're making the decisions behind the scenes that affect our lives. And we need to know what's going on. And we haven't known. And so now, this final rule policy could potentially shut down all these OPOs. What are people going to do? What are people going to do? If you don't know God and if you don't know that Jesus is Lord, you're going to be in trouble right and through here right about now. If you don't have your faith to rely on, you're going to panic and freak out. And you can't do that. And you're not going to do that.
No, and we need to have people, like, even a lot of times, like, so my transplant group, I've been lucky that I've been a part of a bunch, and I get the, like, if one of them says, oh, you can't do this if you're doing that, then I'm like, well, then I can't be a part of yours, because you're not going to tell me where I could share my story, because I want to help people. I could care less about who's in charge of what, if that makes sense. Like, if I want to share my story because I want to help somebody, but a lot of these
And a lot of them
organizations,
don't want you to talk about religion. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's like a big no no.
I know
They don't
nothing.
want you to talk about Jesus or God or none of that.
Or
Or prayer.
religion, and you have to say everything that is positive. If you
Yeah.
start to say anything not negative, but like if you say, oh, I had this side effect, or this was a little difficult for me, or
They
whatever,
want to beat you down. Yeah.
because they want people to donate their organs, which I do understand. But the thing is, a lot of us do have these emotions, and I think that's why it's good when what you're doing is because people are going to talk, and they're going to say, not in a negative way, but say like, oh, I had
Keep
this
it
effect,
real.
or this made me feel this way. Exactly, real talk. And somebody might say, oh wow, I'm really not alone, like this is
Yeah.
normal, because nobody talks about the nitty gritty with transplant a lot. We talk about the positive, which we should, but there are some effects that really affect all of us that we're scared of. And I think if we knew that we're not alone, you might feel better about it, to say like, oh
Yeah.
wow. I wonder why I want to beat people up and eat everything. Prednisone really is crazy.
I'm
Or
on
all of a sudden,
prednisone. That's
yeah,
why.
or like, oh, I have to, the biopsies do really hurt if they go in through a certain vein, or the way they're doing it, or what's happening, or just like little tips. But that's a part of our lives. But to some people, it's like, okay, just say you had your transplant, you're happy, and that's it. But
Yeah.
I wish that's just how
That's
it went, right?
that's
Like,
how it was.
you need a transplant, you get your transplant, now you just go back to happy. Unless they're going to give us all Zoloft, we have emotions.
Right. We do. And they're heightened, it seems, by all of the stuff that we take. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Sometimes I just cry for no reason, and my son will say, "Mama, why you crying?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I
It's
just feel
true.
some kind of way." Yeah, it's true.
You're just like,
Yeah.
what happened? And it could just be even something triggers. You're right. We have all these emotions, but nobody really talks about it. And then you're so confused. You're like, why am I feeling this way? And what's
I
happening? And like
cry.
your
You cry too?
body, you end up with stuff on your body, or your body just feels off. Like the worst is when I was before the dialysis, I was so swollen, and I was chalking it up to different things and whatever the case was. But I felt like my body was like, I was like, I wanted to just crawl out of it. Like I felt like a sausage they were trying to shove in something. I'm like, I just want to get out of this body. Why do I feel this way? And then they told me why and whatever, because I was in kidney failure. But like, you don't realize, and a lot of us just talking to each other, we learn different things. Or that's why in the group sometimes I laugh. The person that's yelling at one person for eating sushi is eating the other thing or this thing, and then everybody fights in the heart trans. I don't know if you're a part of the heart transplant group on Facebook.
Um, there's a couple of them, but they don't let me promote my show. I'm
Why?
sorry,
See,
my
that I
husband.
don't like either. You're helping
I
other
think
heart
only
transplant
UNOS lets me
patients.
promote my show. I mean, I get kicked. I got kicked off of most of them for trying to promote my show, or for trying to
But
find guests for my
you're
show.
you're literally talking to heart transplant patients.
Mhm.
That makes no
But God
sense.
is so good. He sends people to me, you
That's
know,
true.
and He usually sends people who are believers, who understand the power of prayer, and that are wanting to strengthen their faith in one way or another. Because those are the people I pray that He sends me. You know,
I
so yeah. I've only talked to one person who says she's an atheist, and I don't think she is. I think she's just angry at God
Okay.
for whatever reason. And a lot of people are, we go through things. Like I've talked to transplant recipients said they were angry with God because they went through, why do I need a new heart? And I was never angry with God. I did question why, but every time that question would pop up in my mind, I would say, regardless, I trust you. And if you could just, continue to trust in the Lord and trust his process, then it will give you so much peace and you won't be freaking out when, anxiety can't bother you when you trust in God. Because he said, be anxious for nothing. Yeah.
It's very
So
true. I
it's
try
true.
to. That's why I'm trying to stay calm. Like a lot of people are always like, "What? Like you seem okay." I'm like, I have my moments too, but you're right.
Yeah.
We have to have faith and believe, and if you have that faith and hope and you really have it, it does help you get through things. And I think that's one thing. And taking it just day by day, and I think that too is having that somebody's there helping you from above and really sending you
Honey,
love.
he's not just above. The Holy Spirit is in you. That's how good this thing is. He's in you everywhere you go. Got it? You are never alone. That's why he can say you're never alone because he is in you. He is your helper. The Holy Spirit is a comforter, the Bible says. You know, he's your teacher, he's your advocate with the Father. You have supernatural help on the inside of you, no matter where you go.
I love that. And I love, like I said, my donor, she told me in the letter it said he believed in the Lord. That was one of the first things it said in the letter. And then when I met her, she said she had four children. They were both like she had two children. So he had two half siblings, and he had a sister that was my age, and him and the sister were very close, which it really hurt
You know
her.
what? Do you know what happened to him?
He was a gunshot victim. He was in the wrong place at
So
the
he
wrong
was legal.
time.
Yeah, so he was legally brain dead, so he qualified to be a donor. Was he already on the registered donor list, or did his mom say yes to organ donation on his behalf?
When I met his mom, she because for years I only had the letter, and we had talked over the phone. But you talk over the phone, it's very different when you see someone in person. And in person, she really told me everything that pretty. So upstate New York is a very different. Like so, you have New York City, which is its own vibe, Long Island, which is its own vibe, and then upstate is its really own thing. So back then they played. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, in between, but they went hunting. They played with guns a lot. Like that's just it's a different lifestyle than it is here. So she got a phone call. She had many different jobs because she was pretty much a single mother because she was with his father but she wasn't with his father, which she had explained. So she worked a lot, and she was at her second job. She was a waitress, and they called her and said your son is in the hospital, he's a gunshot victim. But they made it sound like, oh, they were probably hunting and maybe he got shot in the leg or something. Nothing that crazy. But when she got there, they said we need to bring you to the back. Your son is not really with us anymore. He's brain dead. And she even called her mother up and said, Matthew is not with us anymore. They're asking me about organ donation, all these things. And her mother said not to donate the organs, but she felt that he would have wanted to. And that's why
Wow.
she did it.
Wow. See? God moves on the hearts of people to say yes. And you can't tell me that's not true. He does. He
And
moves on
sh
the hearts of people to say yes because God knew that Jennifer was waiting on the transplant list and she needed Matthew's heart. He knew that. And I just totally believe with all my heart that he is involved in this process. Absolutely. So, how dare these organizations not include him in the conversation?
it's
You know?
true.
And so that's why we have About Transplant Life.
Well,
So
I
that's
love
what
what
we
you
do.
do.
Thank you,
And
baby.
thank
I
you for
really
everything
appreciate it.
you do. And like I said, anytime you want to come to New York or maybe, well, now I can't really travel, but after transplant, then I could travel again. I like traveling. I could come to
You can come to
California.
California and be on my stage in Pasadena. Cause I
Yeah, I
got a
love
set,
that.
girl.
Like
I
I
got a
said,
whole
anytime you
show.
want to come to New York, we go see a Broadway show, whatever you want to do, anything that you wanted to do here. We go,
Okay.
we take
You
you.
hear that, Tony? We got an invitation to go to New York.
Yeah.
Coney Island hot dogs, he said.
Yeah. Coney Island from here is about an hour away, but and I was a vegetarian for 18 years, and then in the hospital, literally in the hospital, I was like, I want to eat chicken parm, and I was, and then, but I was a vegetarian because I got gout when I was really young, but I got gout
Oh.
because of the medication. So they were looking at me when I would go in there, and they kept giving me cortisone shots on my foot because they thought that I was young. They're like, like, I guess they just didn't think I had gout, but because of the medicine, you end up with a lot of crystallization, and I now take allopurinol for it. But also, I became a vegetarian to try to help it that way. But then they said with the kidney disease, you lose protein. So that's why I was craving chicken. So now I'm like, give me all the meat. So I go eat a Coney Island hot dogs for you any day you want.
All right, Tony. We got a date with Jennifer in New York. And we're gonna take you up on that one day. And
Yeah, let me know
after
like at any time.
after you get all healthy and strong again, we'll talk about it.
Yes, I
'Cause
love that.
I expect good things from to happen to you. I really, really do. You would not be talking to Miss Vinnie if God didn't have a plan and purpose for your life. I believe that because I know He hears me when I pray. I know it. I'm not
Thank
bragging.
you.
I just know it. I know it. Why? Because I pray His word. And I've seen so many miracles happen in my own life, in the life of others, and so I'm going to be praying for you. Okay. Thank you
Thank
for doing
you.
this after the show with
Of
me.
course. I love it. And Pebbles, you got to join. You're a celebrity.
Yes, you are, Miss Pebbles. I hope you feel better
Thank you.
with your mean face.
I know, and she's cut. It's so funny. She got this cut, and even at the vet, they were like, "I'm like, yeah, she's so she's just see, she's just like a little
She's a
cover
sweetie pie.
monster, but she just you got me face on
She all the time, huh?
now with
Yeah.
this cut, yeah. But she's the sweetest. So my boyfriend works nights because he's a Port Authority cop for JFK,
Oh,
and which is the one of the airports over here. So
yeah.
she really like is with me at night. I take her where I can. We've helped each other, I believe, a lot.
That's good. I'm glad you have that baby to take care of. You know, God sends love in different kinds of forms. It ain't always the way you want it, but you know, He's always right on time, as old folks say.
I
You got somebody to love. That's the main thing, right? And
exactly.
that gives you comfort. So that's the main thing. All right, baby. I love you. Thank you again so
Me
much.
too. And I'll keep
And
you updated, and you keep me updated on your stuff.
I will just follow me. You know where I'm at.
Okay.
And watch this show on Saturday, okay?
Oh, I'm going to. I'm very, and I really am going to tell my friends to watch it, and I really think that it's a something that everybody should be. If you had a transplant, or know someone had a transplant, or just like anything to do with transplant, I think you should watch it. I think everyone should just watch it.
It's just good information to have in your arsenal because you never know when the conversation is going to come up. When somebody in your family might need a transplant, and then you'll
Yes.
know, that our government is changing rapidly, and it's affecting millions of people, and so we just have to stay up to date on everything
Well, I'll be watching.
so we can know what to pray about. Amen. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. I love you. I'll
I
see you
love
again
you
soon.
too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Say bye, Pebbles.
Bye, Pebbles.